Checks and balances explained. What stops one branch? U.S. Citizenship Test, Part 1.
Welcome back to Pathway to Citizenship, the show where we explore the stories behind the U.S. Citizenship Test and turn those tricky civics questions into conversations you'll never forget. I'm Anne, your host, and joining me again is Mark, future citizen and perpetual question machine.
That's me. I've got plenty of questions tonight, especially about this one. What stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? I memorized the answer, checks and balances. But Anne, what does that even mean? It sounds like accounting.
You're not alone, Mark. Almost every student says that. Checks and balances does sound like something you'd hear at a bank, doesn't it?
Yeah, like, excuse me, ma'am, I'd like to balance my checks and maybe get a savings account.
Exactly. But in the Constitution, checks and balances has nothing to do with money. It's about keeping power in check, making sure no one person or branch of government becomes a king.
So it's like political babysitting?
That's actually a great way to put it. The Founding Fathers had just escaped a system where one king had all the power. They didn't want a repeat of that in America. So they divided the government into 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial.
Congress, the president, and the courts.
Exactly. And then they built a system where each branch can limit or check the others. That balance keeps democracy alive.
Okay, but can you give me a real example? Because I still can't quite picture it.
Sure. Let's play a quick scenario. Imagine you're the president and you just passed a new law saying everyone has to wear green on Mondays.
Nice. That would make the country look like a forest.
True, but Congress might think that's a silly or unfair law. They could refuse to pass it. That's Congress checking your power.
Okay. So Congress says no, but what if I'm a stubborn president and sign an executive order to make it happen anyway?
Then the judicial branch, meaning the courts, can step in and say, "Sorry, Mr. President, that order is unconstitutional." That's the judicial check.
So, everyone's watching everyone else.
Exactly. It's like a 3-way security system. Each branch has a camera on the others.
Wow. So no one gets to play dictator.
Exactly. It's protection from power overload. Think of it like a seesaw. If one side goes too high, the others push back to level things out.
I love that image. But you know, that also sounds exhausting. Doesn't it make the government move super slowly?
It does sometimes, but that's intentional. The founders believed slow, deliberate decisions were better than fast mistakes. They wanted debate, disagreement, even a little tension to protect freedom.
So, democracy is kind of like a slow cooker. It takes time, but the results are worth it.
Perfect metaphor, Mark. And that's why the answer, checks and balances, matters. It's not just a phrase to memorize. It's the reason America has lasted over 200 years without turning into a monarchy.
I think I get it now. It's not about stopping government. It's about steering it.
Exactly. You just summed up the heart of the U.S. Constitution.
All right, Anne. I'm hooked. But how do we see checks and balances working in real life? I mean, I get the theory, but does it actually happen?
Great question. It happens all the time, though sometimes it looks messy. Let's look at some famous examples. Take the story of President Harry Truman in 1952. During the Korean War, he tried to take control of steel factories to prevent a strike, but the Supreme Court said, "Nope, you can't do that." That case, Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer, proved that even a president at war isn't above the Constitution.
Whoa. So the court basically told the president to chill out.
Exactly. That's judicial power checking executive power. Now, let's flip it. Congress once tried to pass laws limiting what the president could do with troops, but presidents sometimes veto those laws. That's executive power checking legislative power.
Right. Because only the president can veto a bill.
You got it. But even that veto isn't the final word. Congress can override the veto with a 2/3 vote.
The revenge of the legislature. It's like a political ping-pong match.
That's exactly what it is, a constant back and forth, and the ball is the balance of power.
So, all this arguing isn't chaos, it's design.
Yes, the founders wanted argument. They believed disagreement was healthier than blind obedience. Think of it like the brakes and gas pedal on a car. If you only had gas, you'd crash. If you only had brakes, you'd never move. Checks and balances make sure that the car of democracy stays on the road.
I love that. But what about the people? Where do we fit in this system?
Oh, we're the mechanics. We choose who drives the car by voting, and if a driver goes off course, we replace them at the next election.
So the people are like the ultimate check on all three branches.
Exactly. The Constitution begins with "we the people" for a reason. It reminds every branch who's really in charge.
That makes me think, if checks and balances are so important, do other countries have them?
Some do, but few work quite like ours. The U.S. system inspired others, but it's uniquely strong because of its separation of powers. Some countries have a single parliament that can pass any law, but here, laws have to pass through multiple gates.
Like security checkpoints for power.
That's right. Think of the branches as three friends sharing a pizza. One can't eat the whole thing, or the others will protest. Each has a slice, and everyone watches to make sure no one takes too much cheese.
So the Constitution is the world's most polite pizza party.
That's one way to see it. The beauty of it is that even when there's tension, when Congress fights with the president or the courts block a law, it's not a crisis. It's democracy doing its job.
That's reassuring. I used to think government arguments meant something was wrong.
Not at all. Arguments mean people care. The real danger is when no one argues anymore. That's when power goes unchecked.
Wow. So, in a weird way, America's constant fighting is what keeps it free.
You got it, Mark. Freedom isn't quiet. It's a chorus of voices balancing each other out.
And that's what checks and balances really means. Everyone's keeping everyone honest.
Exactly. And that's why that question on the citizenship test isn't just memorization. It's a key to understanding how America protects itself from power, corruption, and tyranny.
I feel like this should be a movie, The Balancers, a constitutional thriller.
You'd be the star. But you're right, the story of checks and balances is a thriller. It's the story of how freedom survives.
Well, then I guess I'll remember it forever. What stops one branch from becoming too powerful? Checks and balances, the superhero team of American government.
Perfect summary, Mark. And that's the start of understanding not just how the U.S. works, but why it works.
How the branches check each other. U.S. Citizenship Test Civics Explained, Part 2.
So, Mark, in Part 1, we unpacked what checks and balances really means. Now let's go deeper. I want you to see how it's not just a theory in the Constitution. It's something that plays out constantly in American life.
I'm ready. You said before that it's like a three-way security system. But what happens when those three branches actually disagree? Like, who wins?
Great question. The beauty is, no one really wins. The goal isn't victory. It's balance. Every branch gets to push and pull, and that tension keeps democracy alive.
Sounds like a family dinner with three stubborn relatives.
Exactly. Imagine Congress as the older sibling who makes the House rules, the president as the middle sibling who enforces them, and the Supreme Court as the wise but quiet youngest one who interprets the rules. They argue, but they all have a say in how the family functions.
So they're constantly negotiating how much power they each get?
Right. And the Constitution gives each of them tools to challenge the others. Congress can pass laws, but the president can veto them. The president can appoint judges, but the Senate must approve them. The Supreme Court can strike down laws if they violate the Constitution.
So no one gets the final word.
The Constitution gets the final word. That's what keeps everyone humble. Think of it like a referee in a basketball game. Players might argue, but they all play by the same rule book.
Makes sense, but I can imagine moments when that balance gets tense.
Oh, absolutely. Let's take one famous example. In 1952, President Truman tried to take control of steel factories during the Korean War because the workers were planning to strike. He said it was a matter of national security.
I think I heard about that. Something to do with the Supreme Court?
Yes, the case was Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company versus Sawyer. The court ruled against Truman, saying he didn't have the constitutional authority to seize private property without Congress's approval.
Wow. So the court actually stopped the president during wartime?
They did. That decision proved that even in times of crisis, the president isn't above the Constitution. That's a real-life example of checks and balances in action.
I see. It's not just about stopping power. It's about protecting the rules that keep the system fair.
Exactly. Every branch has to respect the limits of its own role, and those limits protect citizens like you and me.
I like that. It means the Constitution is stronger than any single person.
Precisely, Mark. That's why one of the U.S. Citizenship Test questions, what stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful, isn't just trivia. It's a reminder that the American system is designed to protect liberty by distributing power, not concentrating it.
It's like democracy's secret engine, always humming in the background to keep things balanced.
Beautifully said. The founders knew that power is like fire. It's useful when controlled, but dangerous when left unchecked.
So checks and balances are like the fire alarm of democracy.
Exactly. And as a future citizen, knowing that helps you understand not only how your government works, but why it works the way it does.
Okay, Anne, now I'm curious. How do checks and balances show up in modern times? I mean, the Constitution was written over 200 years ago. Does it still hold up today?
That's one of the best questions you could ask, Mark. And the answer is yes, more than ever. The Constitution was written to be flexible. Its system of checks and balances adapts to new challenges, even ones the founders couldn't have imagined.
Like technology or foreign policy.
Exactly. For example, Congress can pass laws about cybersecurity, but the president decides how those laws are enforced. And if there's a dispute about whether a surveillance program violates privacy rights, the courts step in.
So it's like a triangle that keeps evolving with time.
Perfect metaphor. Each side of the triangle has to stretch and bend with history. Let's take a more recent example. In 2017, there were debates over executive orders on immigration. The president issued them, but federal courts reviewed and even blocked some parts they found unconstitutional.
That's checks and balances right there, live on TV.
Exactly. And those moments remind Americans that no single branch gets to make or enforce laws without oversight. The courts make sure everything aligns with the Constitution, the supreme law of the land.
So the Constitution isn't frozen in the 18th century. It's still refereeing in the 21st.
That's right. It's a living framework. Let's do a quick role play to help you remember this for the test.
Oh boy, here we go again.
I'll be the president, and you'll be Congress. I want to pass a law requiring every citizen to eat broccoli 3 times a week because it's healthy.
I, as Congress, think that's ridiculous. I vote no.
Fine, I'll veto your bill against broccoli.
Well, I'll rally 2/3 of Congress to override your veto. No broccoli tyranny today.
But now someone sues, saying the new broccoli law violates personal freedom. The Supreme Court steps in and declares the law unconstitutional.
And boom, the balance is restored. No forced vegetables.
Exactly. You'll never forget this one. I can tell.
Never. So every time power swings too far, another branch steps in to pull it back.
That's the rhythm of democracy. And remember, the system only works because the people, the voters, choose the members of Congress and the president. Citizens keep the circle going.
That's my favorite part. It means I'm not just learning history, I'm part of it.
Absolutely. Every election, every vote, every civic action keeps that balance alive. It's like maintaining a perfectly tuned instrument.
And if one string goes out of tune, the others pull it back into harmony.
Beautiful analogy, Mark. That's the spirit of checks and balances. It's not a fight. It's a conversation between branches, across centuries, with citizens like you joining the dialogue.
You know, I never thought the citizenship test could feel this alive.
That's because it is alive. When you answer that question, what stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? You're not just giving a definition. You're describing the heartbeat of American democracy.
That's powerful, and honestly, kind of inspiring.
It should be. Because when you take your oath as a citizen, you become part of that balance. You're not just protected by it, you help sustain it.
That makes me proud. The idea that even my one vote is part of the system that keeps power in check, it's humbling.
That's what the founders dreamed of, Mark, an active citizenry. They knew that the true balance of power depends not just on branches of government, but on the people's participation.
So checks and balances aren't just about presidents and courts. They're about citizens, too.
Exactly. And that's what we'll explore next, how every American, from voters to journalists to everyday neighbors, becomes part of that ongoing balance that keeps our democracy strong.
I'm ready for that. The next segment sounds like it's about how we, the people, play our part.
You guessed it, because in the end, we the people aren't just words, we're the final check and balance of them all.
Citizens' power in U.S. government. We the People explained for Citizenship Test, Part 3.
So, Mark, we've talked about how the three branches of government balance each other, but I saved the best for last, the fourth balance.
Wait, there's a fourth one. I thought there were only 3 branches.
You're right about the 3 branches, but the real guardian of balance isn't in Washington. It's the people. The citizens are like the invisible fourth player who keeps everyone else honest.
So we're part of the checks and balances system too.
Absolutely, the Constitution starts with "we the people" for a reason. The Founding Fathers wanted the people to have the ultimate say. That's why we vote, write to our representatives, protest, volunteer, and serve on juries. Every one of those actions is a way to check government power.
I never thought about voting as a check, but it makes sense. If a leader goes too far, people can vote them out.
Exactly. It's like democracy's reset button. And remember, on the U.S. Citizenship Test, there's a question that asks, what are 2 ways that Americans can participate in their democracy? The answer includes voting and running for office, but it also includes contacting officials, joining community groups, or even writing letters to the editor.
So it's not just about elections, It's about staying engaged every day.
Right. Let's pretend for a second. Imagine Congress passed a law that raised taxes unfairly. What could citizens do?
They could organize, call their representatives, or vote for new ones in the next election.
Exactly. That's checks and balances in action, powered by the people. The founders didn't want passive citizens, they wanted watchdogs.
So in a way, being a citizen is like being a referee too. You're not just watching, you're calling out fouls when you see them.
Perfectly put. And that's what makes the U.S. system so unique. The government answers to the people. It's a conversation, not a command.
That's actually kind of thrilling. When I take the oath of allegiance, I'll be joining that conversation.
Exactly. Becoming a citizen means gaining not just rights, but responsibilities, the power to keep the system balanced.
You know, Anne, I like that idea of citizens as the fourth balance, but does it really work in real life? Like, have regular people ever made a difference in checking the government?
Oh, countless times. Let me give you a few examples that make me proud to teach this stuff. One of my favorites is the civil rights movement. Ordinary Americans, students, teachers, families spoke out against unfair laws. Their protests and persistence led Congress to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's people checking government to make it live up to its own constitution.
That's powerful. They didn't just accept things, they changed them.
Exactly. And then there's the women's suffrage movement. For decades, women pushed for the right to vote. They marched, organized, and educated others until the 19th Amendment was passed. That's another check. Citizens using their voices to expand justice.
So, checks and balances aren't just about branches. It's about balance between the government and the governed.
Yes, you're getting it. And it doesn't always have to be big national movements. Even at the local level, people use that power. For example, when a city passes an unfair ordinance, citizens can petition to overturn it or attend town meetings to speak out.
That's encouraging. It means I don't need to be famous or powerful to make a difference.
Exactly. You just need awareness and participation. That's why the citizenship test includes questions like, what is one promise you make when you become a U.S. citizen? And one of the answers is to be loyal to the United States. But loyalty doesn't mean silence. It means caring enough to speak up when something's wrong.
That's a good point. Loyalty through honesty, not obedience.
Perfectly said. The founders believed that the health of the republic depends on active citizens, people who question, learn, and hold their leaders accountable.
You know, when I first started studying for this test, I thought it was all about memorizing names and dates. Now I see it's really about understanding your role in a living democracy.
That's the heart of it, Mark. The test isn't just testing your memory, it's testing your readiness to join that ongoing story.
I feel like every answer now has a deeper meaning. Like when I say, checks and balances stop one branch from becoming too powerful, I'll also think, and I'm part of that too.
That's exactly how I want you to feel, because you're not just studying history, you're stepping into it. We've come full circle, Mark, from branches and vetoes to the power of your own voice. How does it feel now, seeing what checks and balances really mean?
Honestly, it's kind of emotional. When I started, I thought it was just a fancy phrase for government red tape. Now it feels like a promise, a system built on trust between the people and their leaders.
That's beautifully said. And that trust only stays alive when citizens care enough to learn, vote, and question. That's why the citizenship test is such an important rite of passage. It's not just about getting a passport. It's about proving you understand the heartbeat of democracy.
You know, Anne, I used to see the U.S. citizenship test as this scary obstacle, but now it feels like an invitation to learn how this country really works.
Exactly. And one of my favorite parts of the test is that it doesn't stop at facts. It teaches values, freedom, equality, rule of law, participation. When you answer questions like, what is the rule of law? Or what stops one branch from becoming too powerful? You're really talking about America's character.
It's funny. I used to think my accent made me sound like an outsider, but now I realize my voice adds something new to that balance too.
Absolutely. America has always been a chorus of different voices. Every new citizen adds a note to that harmony.
And it's a harmony that only works when everyone respects the rhythm, the Constitution.
You nailed it. That's the essence of checks and balances. Harmony, not hierarchy. Every branch, every citizen plays a part in the melody.
I think about that sometimes. The idea that this country isn't perfect, but it's always trying to improve.
That's what makes it so powerful. The founders didn't create a finished system. They created a framework that invites every generation to build on it. And now you'll be part of that story.
It's strange. I came here chasing opportunity, but now, studying this, I feel like I've discovered responsibility too.
That's the transformation of citizenship. You begin with hope and you end with purpose.
So, Anne, when I walk into that interview, I won't just be answering questions. I'll be representing an idea that government and people work together to stay balanced.
Exactly, Mark. And when they ask, what stops one branch from becoming too powerful, you'll know it's more than an answer. It's a truth that's lived, not just memorized.
Checks and balances. The promise that power belongs to everyone and no one all at once.
That's the line of a future citizen right there.
You know, when I first sat down in your class, I thought the Constitution was a dusty old document. Now I see it as something alive, like a heartbeat that everyone contributes to.
And that's the best kind of answer. The kind that shows you understand the spirit behind the words. Remember, the citizenship test is a doorway, not a finish line. After you pass, the real work begins, staying informed, voting, teaching others what you've learned.
I will. Maybe one day I'll even teach someone else about checks and balances. I'll tell them how my teacher said it's the secret engine of democracy.
I'd love that, because that's how democracy survives, through stories, lessons, and voices passed from one citizen to another.
You've given me more than lessons, Anne. You've given me a way to see my place in America.
And you've reminded me why I teach, to see that moment when someone realizes they're not just learning about America, they're becoming part of it.
Then I guess I'm ready for the test, for the oath, for the balance.
You are. And when you raise your hand and say, I will support and defend the Constitution, remember this conversation. Remember that those words connect you to millions before you and millions after.
I will. And I'll remember that the real test isn't in that office. It's every day after, as a citizen.
That's the perfect ending, Mark, because citizenship isn't about passing a test, it's about living the answers.
Checks and balances, and people keeping the promise.
Exactly. Welcome to the balance, future citizen.